Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me. Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com. It is in the description below. Your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any of our platforms. Please email me directly for pricing. tmosso at thewatchbox.com. Today, we are discussing a highly customized 50-piece limited edition from the 2021 model year. This is a GoS Norrsken, and it is a Northern Lights themed watch that, though part of a 50-piece series, is effectively unique due to specific choices made regarding the dial, the bezel, the case, and more. And we'll talk about all of that in a moment. First, it is comprised of folded Damascus steel and conventional 316 stainless steels, and it's 41.5 millimeters in diameter by 12.5 millimeters thick by 49.4 millimeters from lug tip to lug tip, and has nice broad modern 21 millimeter spacing between the lugs. On my wrist, which is 16 centimeters in circumference, you can see it's a broad but flat watch that due largely to the construction of the movement, which is a micro rotor automatic. So it will fit underneath the cuff, but I do think you need a wrist of 15 centimeters circumference or larger to wear this well. And once more, my wrist is 16 centimeters in circumference. It will fit underneath the cuff. It's not terribly thick, and it has a nice sloped bezel profile. What you see here is a bit of a first for me. When I first saw this strap, my thought was lizard leather, which is not uncommon, but this is actually a piece of green treated salmon leather. As you can see, like the watch itself, which is Swedish made, this is a Stockholm fabricated strap, calfskin on the bottom, green salmon on the top, monotone stitch, sheer cut showing thick layers of leather, no crimping, no gouging, beautifully preserved. It's matched with a folded Damascus style buckle. Now there is a lot of dispute about what Damascus steel actually is, so I want to be clear that when I speak of Damascus steel in the case of GoS, I'm speaking specifically of something that's been hammered and layered to create this texture. Taking a quick look at the watch, this is where things start to become a little bit custom. You had a choice of metals, case profiles, bezel designs, dials, bezel flange designs. You see where I'm going with this? So though this is a 1 out of 50 watch, it's also earned the moniker unique piece. So if you thought these two things were somewhat in tension, there is actually no conflict. Taking a look at the dial, you begin to realize that this watch is very much a collaboration. So GoS is a combination of Johan Gustafsson and Patrick Sjögren. So they are both very different kinds of craftsmen. Sjögren is a computer science, engineering, watchmaking type of CEO and brand founder, whereas Gustafsson is specifically an artisanal bladesmith. And so a lot of that is expressed in the serrations of the case, the use of Damascus steel. That, however, is not the extent of the collaboration, as we have a dial, traditional Guilloché, cut by no less an authority in Guilloché engraving and skeletonization than Jochen Benzinger of Pforzheim, Germany. So if you know that name, you know that that is an incredible origin story for this dial, one of the best in the business. And of course, we have that Northern Lights green. We also get a remarkable type of badgerite luminescence from James Thompson of Black Badger, and we'll show you that in a moment. And then this flange outboard is actually a piece of artisanally crafted glass crystal, and that is created by Mikael Kenlund, also of Sweden. So you may have realized by now a lot of impressive people stand behind this watch. Taking a quick look externally, you can see everything, although eclectic in shape and form, it really does seem quite cohesive. This is a little symbol, the Triskela of the brand. You'll find it on the dial, you'll find it on the crown, you'll find it again on the reverse on the ratchet wheel of the movement, but we're not there yet. First, I promised you a Lume shot, courtesy of Black Badger, so let's make that happen. Quite a bit of Lume, in fact, and I have highly diffused dim lights in my light box that haven't energized this ring quite enough. When it is fully lumed, and maybe I'll take one last pass, when it's fully lumed by sunlight, it's bright enough that you can read the time even though the hands themselves are not luminescent. Let's try again. Getting a little bit closer now, but I really do think you need to see this with sunlight exposure, and unfortunately I do not have a UV handy at the moment. So the watch has a very distinctive dial. We have this Viking spear style set of hands. They're faceted down the center for better contrast. And the movement is interesting. It's not their own, but it's a fantastic customer caliber. This is a Schwarzetian ASE 200, which is a genuinely worthy independent brand, large diameter micro rotor automatic. This is a company that makes all the important stuff, including, among others, the escapement, the hairspring, and the balance. And this is a custom piece for GoS. So what you're looking at isn't a generic ASE 200. Let's talk about the specs, then we'll talk about the customization. It's a large movement, 30.4 millimeters in diameter. It fills the case back of this 41.5 millimeter watch effectively. Also, because the rotor and the winding system are in the same plane as the other bridges, you get a movement that's thin like a manual wind watch with a big open case back vista. 86-hour automatic winding power reserve. It does have a stop seconds function. It beats away at 3 hertz, pivots on 33 joules, and it is adjusted in a chronometer and high horology standard of 5 positions. If you look, you can see it is dedicated to GoS, custom built for them. And if you look really close, you can see it even says so right on the bridge of the train. Now, a couple of things were changed. Let's start with the obvious ones. The Triskele is present on the ratchet wheel, which features polished teeth outboard, a nice touch. We have a piece of Damascus steel, which has been greened, and that's actually a cap to the rotor. If you look carefully, you can see that the rotor sits underneath. It's a different material, but there is a Damascus steel cap. Finally, and this is probably the biggest physical change, there is now a freestanding cock for the escape wheel. If you look carefully, you can see we have a balance cock, we have a big mono bridge for the train, but then there is this standalone bridge that's been carved out, and it's a graceful and elegant modification to create almost a finger train style down to the balance itself. Other elements are custom finish that have been spec'd by GoS. So let's start with the big one, perlage on the base plate. You can see very different from the kind of media blast you get on a standard box stock ASE 200. The satin grain across the top of the bridges is generic to the ASE 200, but the quality of the beveling, which is mirrored and rounded, is not. This has been specifically spec'd and delivered for the GoS version, and there's a lot to love here. The bevels are probably the best single part of the finish and customization of this, but with the individual cock bridge for the escape wheel, the Damascus steel cap, the Triskele on the ratchet wheel, the perlage, the beveling, it really does become a very unique take on the ASE 200, which is a high horology independent automatic we're seeing on more and more high-end watches. There's really a lot to love with this Swedish-made watch, and I have only scratched the surface. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details of this fantastic independent horology product from the far north of Europe. Hi, I'm back, having fully charged the chapter ring with a UV light, and I continue to do so here. I wanted you guys to see this at its best. I can actually read the time here in the light box. It's a little bit difficult. It doesn't translate on the recording, but rest assured, it is absolutely brilliant, and I can see the time. One more thing to note, 50 meters water resistance, a lot for a dress watch, not a lot for a sports watch. Consider this one to be rain and splash exposure only.